Photoshop mockup automation made ridiculously easy. If you make mockup images in Photoshop, you've probably noticed what a repetitive, boring task it is. It's just the same robotic, monotonous steps. You come here, you go replace contents on the smart object, you find your image number one, then you go here, you go file, export, and maybe if you have a large number of artwork images that you need to create mockups for, doing this manually can take hours of time in Photoshop, and luckily for you, we're going to show you how to automate this process with a few simple button clicks. This is a plugin for Photoshop. It's something you can install through the official Adobe Exchange. I'm going to have a link in the description of this video, and you can also check the comments section as well. Once you add it to Photoshop, it's really easy to use. You just click a couple things, set up your operations. You can also save operations to run later. You can chain together multiple operations to run one after the other. And what this plugin allows you to do is really automate your entire mockup creation workflow inside of Photoshop, quite literally with just a few quick, easy, simple button clicks. The plugin is called Batch Replace Smart Objects, and as you can guess from the name of the plugin, it specializes in, yes, you guessed it, batch replacing smart objects. The way it works for whatever Photoshop document that it happens to be operating on, what it does is it detects the smart object layer in the document. So if it's a simple mockup scene like this one, where there's just one single smart object layer, it'll say, cool, that's the smart object we're going to use for the operation, and it'll basically rotate all of the images from your input folder inside of the smart object. It'll update the mockup scene, and then it'll export the updated mockup image to your output folder using your specified image save settings. If your mockup template happens to have several smart objects, all you need to do is just select the layer that you want it to operate on, and it'll just operate accordingly on that one particular layer. Maybe you have a different sort of setup. Maybe it's like, you're trying to update two smart objects simultaneously or whatever. If you want it to work that way, you can just select multiple smart objects in the document, and it'll basically operate on whatever the selected, highlighted, active layer is in the document. There's also a different mode you can switch between. You can also select an entire folder of PSD files to use. So instead of just pointing to and operating on one document at a time, if you toggle this mode here, you can just point to your folder, and it'll basically rotate through all of the PSD files in the folder, and it'll basically perform the bulk mockup creation operation on the first PSD file using all of the images. Then once that's done, it'll move on to the second one, then the third, and so forth. Photoshop document to use, we're just going to start with this one here. So we're going to locate that real fast. I have a folder of my PSD files. We're going to come here, which is this one here, and that's all good. Input folder to use, all we're going to do is find our folder of artwork images. Output folder to use, select that folder. There's a nifty feature here, stretch images to fit smart objects. Now this is very useful for making sure that all of your mockup images are going to perfectly fit the scene, because let's say my input folder happens to contain some images that don't perfectly fit the mockup. This is a 4x5 here. I drop that in, and it doesn't fit the mockup, ideally, because it's just not sized to match the smart object. That's a problem. If I were to try to do this manually, I would have to step in, I would have to drop the image, I would have to resize it and adjust it. It would be a major, big time pain in the ass. And the cool thing about this plugin is if you have this checkbox enabled, it'll just automatically resize all of your images to perfectly fit the smart object, so you can create perfect mockups every time, even if the image size is different, even if the aspect ratio is different. Doesn't matter, just have this enabled and all of your mockups will look fantastic. And then you can also specify the image save quality that you want. You can do JPEG or PNG. So maybe if there's some transparency in your mockup scene and you want to retain that, you'll want to use the PNG file type. One more thing to note about this plugin, if the images in your input folder happen to have transparency, like let's say you're using an image like this, the plugin will detect that, and it'll allow you to basically retain the transparency. So when you generate the mockups, it will retain that alpha channel. So that can be helpful as well, depending upon the type of mockups you're creating. Anyway, this operation's all set up. I'm going to click run this now. So what it's doing here, because we have this checkbox enabled, it opens up the image from the input folder, resizes it so that it fits the smart object, replaces the smart object, and exports the image automatically to our designated output folder. Completely automated, 100% on autopilot. This operation is completely finished. We'll pop over, take a look, and as you can see, it just generated all the mockups. So this was the 4x5 image. This is what it would have looked like, but thanks to this nifty feature, it resized it automatically for us. So that's a nifty little feature that can just help to save you a lot of time, because you don't have to waste time doing a pre-processing step where you need to resize all of your images or whatever. The plugin just does it automatically for you in real time as it runs your automated operation. If you have a standardized workflow where, hey, I'm always using these same mockup templates, it's always the same folder that I put my new images into, whatever it is, you can just save your operations to run later with a single click next time, and it just saves you a little bit of time. You can just come here to this little section, and we'll just say canvas art mockups room number 5. Click the save button, and then these will all appear in your batches section here. And what you can also do is, instead of just saving one operation, you can actually chain together multiple operations in what's called a workflow. So first we'll need to create a new workflow. I'm just going to say canvas art mockups. Save. Step 1, so each step just corresponds to one distinct operation. So step 1, we're just going to say room number 5. Save this, and it just saves all of these settings. That's our step 1. For our other step, let's say we're going to do room number 6. Save. Next step after that, we're going to do room number 8, and so forth. You can basically just add however many steps you want, and you can find your individual saved operations here in the batches tab. This is the first one we created, canvas art mockups, room number 5. As you can see, it saves all your settings. It knows what operation mode to use. It knows here's the Photoshop document, here are the folders. Basically all the settings get saved. You just click run batch, click one button, and it'll just trigger this operation to run automatically with one button click. And then the workflows tab, you guessed it, that's where it saves your workflows to. So this is our step number 1. Again, all the settings here. Step number 2, all the settings here. Step number 3, and then you can just click run workflow. It'll do step 1, completed, step 2, completed, step 3, completed, and it'll just go one after the other, completely automated, saving you a ton of time in Photoshop. Some really dope artwork, by the way, if I might say so myself. This is some very cool stuff. Ooh, this one's so fucking good. I love this one. That's some good stuff, bro. Come on. So we're going to show you how to run an operation using this different mode folder of PSD files to use. As you guessed it, if you want to do that, you select the folder of PSD files to use. 9 different mockup templates. These correspond to different variants, and these correspond to the different room scenes. So this would be a use case where if you have an e-commerce store where you're creating canvas art mockup images, maybe you have different frame colors and different scenes and stuff. If all of your mockup templates are standardized and they correspond to the same aspect ratios and stuff, then using this mode allows you to just select all the mockup files you want to use, select all of the images you want to use, and finally you just select the output folder to dump all of them into. We'll click run this now. So it starts with the first one in the folder, which is our plain canvas. It's creating the mockup images, so when you have this unchecked, it goes pretty fast. It doesn't always update in Photoshop in real time. I think that's just to like preserve resources and run the operation faster. But as you can see here, it's just cranking along in the background and pumping them out pretty goddamn fast. We're already onto the white framed canvas. This operation is completely finished. We're going to take a look at our finished mockup images, and as you can see, 270 images created. This would have taken a shitload of time to do manually, stepping into each individual mockup. I got to open this, I got to drop the image, I got to resize it, I got to make sure it looks good. Instead, you can just come here, click a button, and automate your entire workflow, quite literally with just a few simple button clicks. Especially if you have a sweaty workflow where you need, a bunch of different mockups, a bunch of different variants that you have, different products you're selling, could be different sizes, different colors, different scenes, whatever it is. The plugin just makes it incredibly easy to say, here are the PSD files to use these artwork images, dump the images here, click a button, and it just makes them all for you. Maybe instead of, the 30 or whatever I had, maybe you have 75 or 100 artwork images that you're using. 100 artwork images times 10 mockup files. Cool. How about I spend the entire weekend creating 1,000 mockup images? I don't know about that. Should I spend my entire weekend doing this menial repetitive grunt work? Or should I come into Photoshop, click a few things, and automate this process? Man, that's a tough call right there. Anyway, check this plugin out. Like I said, you can find a link in the description to this video, and you can also check the comments section. It's a gigantic time saver, and once you've experienced the true glory and majesty of automating this process, the idea of just tediously creating your mockup images one at a time, wasting hours of time doing this, completely unthinkable when you can just automate this with one button click. Make sure to drop a like and comment on this video because that helps to keep our YouTube overlords happy. That's all I got for now. Thank you guys for watching, and see you later.